days ago, Karen Bass, the alleged mayor of Los Angeles, said the riots began when anarchists, her term, not mine, infiltrated a peaceful protest. Yesterday, that same Karen Bass said the riots began when Donald Trump sent the National Guard into a perfectly calm and placid city and kicked up a riot just for the sake of kicking up a riot. Which begs the question, which one is it, Karen? What happened to the anarchists? I feel like they got written out of the script on the first revision. Maybe the word didn't test well in the focus groups. Maybe Sacco and Vanzetti threatened to sue for defamation. I don't know. But I'm more interested in what Karen Bass is saying about her own citizenry here. Because in both of these versions of her story, the people of Los Angeles are seemingly just mindless, unthinking NPCs who always stand at the ready to burn and break stuff on command. And who knows, maybe that's the actual truth. In any event, it is Thursday, the 12th of June. This is Curmudgeon's Corner. From high atop the battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where I didn't realize until I said the words, it is Thursday the 12th of June, that it's O.J. Simpson murder day, so I guess we are all destined to never escape from Los Angeles. Who knows? Maybe Ron and Nicole got off easier than the rest of us did. Good evening. God damn it, I keep doing that. Good afternoon, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to Curmudgeon's Corner. Let's talk about crippling moral incoherence. Now, if you're old enough to remember the Rodney King Memorial LA riots of 1992, you may have noticed a couple things that seem rather starkly different about the enchilada intifada of 2025. First, there's a hell of a lot fewer black people. That's a topic for a different video. Second, as horrific as those riots were, as much death and property damage and human suffering as they caused, there was never any mystery about what the animating cause of the riots was. The black population believed, whether rightly or wrongly, that the LAPD was a racist outfit and the LA district attorney tolerated police brutality against black citizens. And thanks to one citizen with a video camera, there exists this piece of footage, the Rodney King tape, that seems to reinforce and underscore all of those suspicions. So, when an all-white jury in suburban Simi Valley returns a verdict of not guilty on the 4 LAPD officers who were charged in the case, the city burns for about 10 days, and the burning doesn't end until the U.S. Army, not the National Guard, mind you, the actual goddamn U.S. Army, is brought in to restore order. And there was nothing astroturfy about any of that stuff. Those were not bought and paid for rent-a riots like we are accustomed to seeing here in the third decade of the 21st century. That was actual civil unrest that had an actual identifiable cause. You didn't have Mayor Tom Bradley changing theories every couple of days according to the latest focus group data like you have Mayor Karen Bass doing today, because do you think for 1 minute that Karen Bass is motivated by a desire to stop the riots and restore law and order to the city? Of course she isn't. She is motivated by a desire to pin the blame on Donald Trump and look like a hero to her party so that Gavin Newsom will pick her to be his running mate in 2028. And Gavin Newsom himself is motivated by a similar desire to pin the blame on Trump and look like a hero to his party so he can secure the 2028 nomination and then pick Karen Bass to be his running mate. And make no mistake, the mayor and the governor alike would gladly watch the whole city burn down and everyone in it die a horrible, fiery, agonizing death if there was a way they could pin it on Trump and thereby advance their own personal political interests. And do you know how we know that? Because I'm going to run through some common phrases right now, and you tell me, how many times have you heard these words uttered by Bass or Newsom or any elected Democrat since the start of the Autobata Intifada? Crime is bad. Please don't destroy property. Taking things that aren't yours is against the law. You're not allowed to shut down public roadways. You have no right to interfere with law-abiding citizens attempting to go about their daily lives. Setting cars on fire is not protected political speech. Back in 92, Mayor Tom Bradley was a black Democrat just like Mayor Karen Bass is, but he didn't have any problem saying all of those things. And that was a presidential election year, but he sure didn't seem to think that advocating for law and order and defending the rights of the innocent was going to be a bad look for his party like today's Democrats evidently do. But then that was back in the old days when Democrats and Republicans generally agreed that America is a good thing and we all like it. But seriously, just try to imagine how much worse the Rodney King riots might have looked, as bad as they were, If the Democrats in 1992 had the same priorities that the Democrats in 2025 do, like I said, 92, it's a presidential election year. There's a Republican president running for re-election. There's an insurgent independent candidate named Ross Perot who is siphoning off support from both of the major parties. Nobody has any clue what's going to happen in November. And the Democrats have got such an unimpressive field of potential nominees, it looks like they might actually have to go with this 42-year-old Arkansas governor that nobody's ever heard of before. So, if the Democrat mayor of Los Angeles wanted to turn his city's civil unrest into a political albatross that he could hang around the neck of the incumbent Republican president, wouldn't that have been the time to do it? Yeah, it probably would have. But did Tom Bradley do that in the event? He did not. When Republican Governor Pete Wilson sent in the National Guard, Bradley said thank you. When Republican President George H.W. Bush sent in the U.S. Army, Bradley said thank you. And what wound up happening in that year's presidential elections? Well, the Democrats won, as it turns out, with that very same 42-year-old Arkansas governor. In other words, there was no political penalty associated with the Democrat mayor of Los Angeles collaborating with a Republican governor and a Republican president to return law and order to the streets of that fair city. If I didn't know better, that might almost lead me to conclude that the American people value order and normalcy above partisan political tribalism. It's almost like the average ordinary law-abiding man on the street would rather live in a nice place than have his party win the elections. But ultimately, this is all wistful pie-in-the-sky nostalgia, really, because today's Democrats are not 1992's Democrats. Hell, today's Democrats probably would have regarded 1992's Democrats as right-wing reactionaries. And speaking of wild, drastic shifts of the Overton window, let's talk for a moment about this idea that's been advanced in recent days by Mayor Bass and Governor Newsom and a great number of their fake news fellow travelers that says Trump and ICE were deliberately trying to inflame tensions just by conducting enforcement operations inside the LA city limits. That this was such an unconscionable act of central government overreach that Angelino simply had no choice but to start firebombing robo-taxis and spray painting curse words on every available surface and looting the nearest footlocker. Now, should we check the scoreboard to see just how brazen and unprecedented this enforcement operation actually was? Well, yes, of course we should. Because when their narratives bear no resemblance to actual reality and are directly falsifiable, we fact-check their ass. If we had a functioning press, the duty wouldn't fall to people like me, but we don't, so it does. Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. of Wilmington, Delaware, he was president of the United States, allegedly, for 4 years, from January of 2021 to January of 2025. For the duration of his term in office, his DHS secretary was the maniac open border zealot and enemy saboteur Alejandro Mayorkas. The two of them happily threw open the southern border and welcomed in something on the order of 15 million unknown, unvetted foreign nationals, a vast majority of whom were military-age males. So one would think that during this period when the country and its border security apparatus were being run by men who wanted to get as many illegal aliens into the country as possible and make it well nigh impossible to ever remove them, there probably weren't all that many ICE enforcement operations that were similar to the one that supposedly provided the spark that lit the fuse of the enchilada intifada of 2025. Well, yes, one might think that, but one would be wrong. Because what does the scoreboard actually say? Well, the scoreboard says Joe Biden's Immigration and Customs Enforcement Department conducted 7,800 enforcement actions just within the city of Los Angeles over the course of that 4-year period. More enforcement actions than were conducted in any other municipality in the entire country. For those of you who are arithmetically inclined, that is an average of 5.34 enforcement actions for every single day of the entire Biden presidency. And nothing has changed about the rules of engagement. Their target is one or more violent criminal illegals, and if in the process of locating and apprehending those guys, other illegal aliens get caught up in the dragnet, well, too damn bad for them. Because all persons present in the country unlawfully are subject to immediate removal. That has never not been the law of the land. President Barack Obama forcibly removed 5.2 million illegal aliens from the country during his 2 terms in office. That's more than twice as many deportations as any other president on record. And how many riots were there over it? How many cities burned down over it? 0 and 0. Trump has not created any new immigration laws, and he's not enforcing them any differently than previous Democratic presidents traditionally have, which should tell you a thing or two about how principled these people really are, and how organic and grassroots the Los Angeles riots of 2025 are in reality. I'm done. That's all I got. See you tomorrow. Get off my lawn.